I am your hair loss daddy. I am your manly mentor. Because if the statistics are right, 40% of boys now grow up in a home where their mother is not married to their biological father. A lot of the times that means there's not a positive male presence in that house there to tell that son, doesn't matter if you go bald, what matters is that you are confident, you know what your skill set is, you embrace your faults, you can make people laugh, you serve other people, you help. You don't have anybody like that telling you that. And so instead, by default, you focus on something that totally doesn't matter. In fact, the more you focus on something so superficial, the less attractive you become. Not because you have less hair, but because you have less confidence. And yes, confidence can be faked, so that helps too. Let's check out this comment. This is wearing this shirt that my wife got me when she went to Magnolia Farms for that show, The Fixer Upper. She got me this shirt. You know, I wore this for an hour and a half straight as I shot all these videos. I've already filmed one video that had a comment from the same guy. So this is 2 in 1 shooting. Ryan is what he goes by. And his comment received 2 thumbs up from 2 of you. So I thought, must be relevant. I should make a video on this. Here's his comment on the video called, "Hold Up, is male pattern baldness actually a negative thing?" So Ryan, quote, "I am white and Asian ethnicity. My dad and granddad are white and are bald. My mom's dad has some hair, kind of balding, but not really will go bald," end quote. So yeah, this is an easy answer. We can have some good speculation on this. So again, his father is white and bald. Mother, it says, has some hair, kind of balding. So let me try to figure out what that would look like. Or maybe I should just look in this up. Does it look like this? Or are we talking more like maybe Norwood 3 Vertex or Norwood 4 even? Maybe something like that for the Asian. And that's completely goes, you know, and what I've always said on my channel, Asian men are less likely to lose their hair, also less likely to grow facial hair and body hair. But those Asian men who do go bald get ridiculed more in their culture if they're not in the United States. I've said that many times. So as we know, and this is how I formed a lot of my theories, knowing this by being a teacher in Thailand. So I did for 2 summers in college. That's when I picked up on this and realized this. And I also went to Korea for a little bit too. And my students, I'm not making this up, I had like a goatee at the time, and my students would rub my arm hair. And it's all hairy. And then the teenage boys, and no, this is a different culture, so it's not, this isn't to make fun of people in Asia. I love people in Asia. But a lot of the guys, a lot of my male students, teenagers, they would rub my hairy arms and say, "You're handsome, very handsome." So what was interesting and that I pursued about their culture, when they saw a white man, they saw a man who was hairy and therefore handsome. They saw that because to them it was exotic. So it's interesting though, if you're a male who has one parent who is white and one who's not, because you're both of those things, you have a high likelihood to go bald, and you also have a high likelihood to not go bald. Now put it in perspective and kind of give you some sort of genetic marker on this. Whereas you're half Asian and half white, my mother is half Mexican, as far as half of her heritage comes from Mexico. And all 3 of her brothers that are in their 60s have 0 hair loss. Hairlines like this, no density loss, they're all in their 60s. So it's interesting because it could truly go either way. Again, if anybody has a lot going for them for not going bald young, it's you, because of your mother, her Asian genes. If anybody has decent chances of going bald young, it's you, because of your dad. Which way will it go? Well, I will say this, in the likeness of me, the more Asian you are, the less likely you are to go bald young. That's going to help, basically in theory, kind of counteract the white genes, the Caucasian genes that are in general more likely to make you go bald. With that being said, we can easily name lots of guys that are 100% European descent, 100% Anglo or whatever, and they have no baldness issues. But in general, white men, specifically, Northern European men in general, are more likely to go bald than a guy who's Asian, in general. So, to answer your question, even though you're less likely to go bald because of your mother's DNA, it's still going to go back to what age could you grow a full connected beard. If you're over the age of 18 and you still can't grow a beard, there's your answer. You're likely to have got your mom's side of the DNA. Look at your body hair. Do you have hairy arms? I mean, look at me. Have you noticed anytime I lift my arms up, it's like I've got these patterns. It's like it braids itself. And that's just my arms. No, don't use your measure. I'm a hairy guy. That's all you need to know. So, if you're heavy on the body hair, then you're more likely to go bald. But if not, if you have very little body hair, again, that's your mom's side of the DNA. Typically, body hair and hair loss are connected. And in the movie called Jack, Robin Williams, I saw it twice when I was in high school in the theater, but he even mentioned that he's supposed to be a guy who is like a 10-year-old boy or something that automatically becomes a 40-year-old man like really quickly. And he talks about that as you get closer to 40 or whatever age you want to put in this blank, that your hair starts leaving your head and going on your shoulders and your back and in your ears and all that. So there's definitely a connection there. So that's how I'm going to say how you would answer that question. But in general, men who are Asian are less likely to go bald young in general. And I will also say that if you have some Asian DNA, that still makes you less likely to go bald young. And I'm in that category. You're thinking, what did you say, Mexican? But consider, and I have a whole other YouTube channel called Family Friendly Daddy Blog where I talk about DNA test results because I'm really big into that stuff. I make a lot of videos on that on my other channel. Check it out if you want to. Family Friendly Daddy Blog is the name of that other YouTube channel that I run. But ultimately, Native Americans came over from originally Asia, 10,000 years ago, however you want to say, came over from Asia, crossed through what is now modern day Alaska, Bering Strait, came through Canada, United States, Mexico, South America, so on, as we know it. And as each one stopped, they became a different group of Native Americans. So like, here in the United States, we're like, oh yeah, the Creek, the Cherokees. Oh, well, the ones who went all the way down to modern day Mexico, we're talking about Mayan, Aztec, etc. So that would be my Native American DNA that goes anciently back to Asia, because in general, people who are Native American, especially the more Native American are, you're going to notice they tend not to have a lot of body hair, but they tend to keep their hair longer. And specifically something that's known about Native Americans also is they tend also not to go gray later in life. So my grandmother, my Mexican grandma, she was 100% Mexican. She was a first generation Mexican American. But, 100% of her DNA and heritage came from Mexico. Her parents were born there. She was born in the United States. She passed away a couple of years ago. And my mom brought it to my attention. I wouldn't have thought about it. She hardly had any gray hair. She didn't dye her hair. She had like this long black hair, and she was in her later 70s. And during that whole time, like, she hardly had any hair that was even turning color. So your ethnic background absolutely is in conjunction, and often you can generalize that to predict your hair loss situation. People aren't paying enough attention to this. That's why I love to talk about it. That's why I make so many videos talking about this. So yes, Nick Shell says, the more Asian you are, or I'll even say Native American, because for me it's the same thing. I would even throw in there like if you're a Pacific Islander, like Samoan, I would even say there's some Asian DNA in that as well. Anything, just take a DNA test. Anything that goes back to Asia, and again, Native American, it's still in that family. It's a matter of sizing that up and figuring that out. Well, then what about other ethnic backgrounds? What if you're actually from India? What if you're Middle Eastern? What if you're Jewish? What if you're Muslim? Well, in general, most of those categories still fall in that European white category. I'd say some African men are sort of in between. A lot of African men in general keep their hair longer. But specifically, if you're an African American, if you're a black man in the United States, you take a DNA test, likely here's what it's going to say. And I've made many videos about this on my other channel. If you're a black American man, most likely if you take a DNA test, it's going to say you're somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 African descent. And then that rest, the remainder, is going to be predictably European, British, sometimes Native American gets thrown in there. So even in that theory, I'd say, well, if you're a black man who shows Native American DNA, maybe even just a little bit, you're still less likely to go bald, because African men in general are less likely to go bald than European men, but they're more likely to go bald than Asian men. So it's a matter of knowing that. See, I think this is fascinating. Again, it's fascinating enough for me to make a whole other YouTube channel about it, Family Friendly Daddy Blog. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your perspective belongs right here.